Hello and welcome to the Tips with Toni podcast. I'm Toni Marinucci, your registered dietitian, helping you get healthy one bite at a time. This next interview is with Danny Shelton. He is a nutrition coach and trainer and business owner of D&D Fitness and Nutrition, where he provides mostly online nutrition coaching, although he also knows a ton about training, and I'm super excited to get into some more information about that. Danny, I was on the pleasure on being on his podcast. He's just a really great guy. I'm super excited for you to hear from him. So Danny, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thanks, Toni. I appreciate you having me. I've been super excited to talk to you again.
Yeah, no, my pleasure. My pleasure. All right. So the very first question I have all of my guests answer is to introduce yourself by sharing who you are, what you do, and most importantly, why you do what you do. I'm going in depth as possible. I know you have a great story, so feel free to run with it. I will just listen.
For sure. So I'm gonna start at the beginning of my story. I love telling my story for starters. I'm somebody who has been through a thing or two. Just to kind of set a precursor, guys, I've been sober for 3.5 years from drugs and alcohol. And I love telling my story, even some of the icky, dark stuff, because I just think it's so important for, people to be inspired and understand, like, it doesn't always have to be pretty. It's not only the people that have these privileged lifestyles that end up on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's okay. It doesn't matter where you're starting from. You can do something positive in your life. So I'm going to start my story. I grew up in Southern California until the age of 12, and I actually have an incredible family. I have a great relationship with my mother. My mom's from the Dominican Republic. My dad's from California. And I grew up in an incredibly loving family. We did grow up religious. And apparently, I have, from a very young age, really struggled with people telling me how I'm supposed to live my life, including, I didn't love the religious frame of like, hey, this is how you're supposed to act and you go to heaven. And if you act this way, then you might end up going somewhere else. And that was something I never really jived with very much. I grew up in the LDS faith, which is a predominant faith here in Utah, where I live now. And you know what's, first of all, I got to say, so many great people in that faith, right? But it's a very restrictive faith. They want you to definitely act a certain way, and they have very stringent repentance policies if you go away from those guidelines. And so it feels, to me, it felt very oppressive. For others, it creates these great human beings that live an incredible life that they love and are happy with. Just wasn't the case for me. So I kind of went through a little bit of a rebellious phase in my teen years. Nothing too crazy. My first experience with alcohol or drug use didn't happen until I was 21. But this is a time period where I'm rebelling. And I remember that first onset of feeling like I did not belong. I did not have very many friends. I felt very uncomfortable in my own skin. And it was always something. I would be too skinny. And so I would start eating more food to gain more weight. And then I was overweight and I felt uncomfortable with that. Like, it didn't matter the changes that I was making. And then, the biggest thing that I can point at too, that was kind of a negative character flaw at that time, was a ton of ego defense mechanisms. Okay. And so I'm somebody who would feel uncomfortable, and I would do my best to cover that up with a bunch of, hey, look how awesome I am, or hey, look what I can do. And at a young age, I had this need to put other people down to make myself feel better. And that's not something I'm very proud of admitting, but at a young age, that's how it was. I wasn't much of a bully, but it was, it was still, people didn't feel good when they were around me. And it's because I didn't feel good about myself when I was around me. Right. And so this brought on my first experience with PED use at the age of 17. So I started doing anabolic steroids at a very young age. And it definitely ended up having some health effects for me later. I'll talk about that as we go. But I'll be the first person to admit, guys, at 24 years old, I was married. and completely unable to perform sexually in the bedroom. And at the age of 24, that is not something that you expect. But because of my PED use, that was the situation that I was in, and it was so embarrassing for me. But anyway, so PED use, which at the time I thought was awesome. Like I had a little bit of acne, but I got some muscles out of it and I felt great, super confident, yada, yada, yada. But like I said, health effects that I deal with to this day, like to this day, I'm actually on testosterone replacement because my body doesn't produce testosterone anymore. It's just, I mean, it does, but at the same levels that your grandfathers would, you know what I mean?
Right.
And so it's a thing. Like it's definitely a decision that I made that I have to live with. But from there, I joined the military. And the military was not a bad thing for me until I got back home. And then there's the PTSD diagnosis that came. I had some problems with nightmares and anxiety. And this is when life starts getting a little bit interesting. At that point in time is when the doctors start prescribing me medications to help me feel more normal. And at one time I had prescriptions for, probably 7 or 8 different psych meds. Everything from, I had the Xanax to the Adderall to the Lamazepam, the Trimazepam. There was a time when I was on Geodone, lithium, the whole 9 yards. You know what I mean? Like it was always something, and it didn't work for a while. And so we try something else, and that works too well. And you get the idea. But for me, I have a very addictive personality. You know what I mean? And I'm not going to say that's the only trait that creates a drug addict, but it's one of them. I always wanted to feel better. I was never okay, right? And so that was really the thing, is like, hey, what concoction of pills can I take to actually feel better about me, right? And then all of a sudden, then we start transitioning into doctor shopping, and I am faking headaches and faking injuries to try and get more medications and all this stuff. And that's bad enough, but it went further. By the end of it, I end up using illegal substances. I was addicted to meth, heroin, and it got pretty nasty, guys. Like, I'm not one of those, there are a lot of people that can hide their drug addiction behind success and money and healthy relationships and all these things, right? I wasn't one of them. I have spent multiple years as a homeless person in downtown Salt Lake City. I have spent literally months at a time sleeping on a sidewalk. When at the very, very bottom of these situations, I guess, I've been arrested multiple times. And then the last time that I got arrested, I ended up doing a little over 6 months in jail. And at that point in time, I lost custodial rights to my 6-year-old daughter, which was probably the best thing that could happen at that time. Because I mean, truthfully, I was completely unfit. And in that state of mind, I probably would have done something awful, like try and go be a parent while I'm drug impaired to try and make myself feel better about myself. Like, okay, maybe this will make me feel better being in her life, right? Which is super inappropriate, but you just don't always realize it at that time. You know what I mean? So, that's the bottom. That's kind of the low point for me. That's that situation where it's just like, oh, wow, I don't have anything right now. I've got probably $80,000 worth of debt that I have no stuff to show for. I've got a foreclosed home, repoed vehicles. I've got these relationships that just were mutilated because, I mean, you just kind of go through all this stuff and you have asked all your friends for money to try and feed your habit and all this stuff, right? But there was still one person that never gave up on me. And this lady's a saint. It's my mother. And it's incredible, guys. My mom, she accomplished something very difficult that most mothers really struggle. She was able to be there for me and love me and support me without enabling me. So she cut off all the money. Boom, done. She's, my mother is, I wouldn't call her wealthy, but she's somebody who, her and my dad will retire at a normal age and live a comfortable life. Like they are, middle class, upper middle class, somewhere in there. They've just been very responsible financially. You
Right.
know what I mean? So they have the ability, or had the ability, to pay for whatever I needed, but had to cut it off. But she never took away her love. She never took away that relationship. My mother came to visit me in jail at least once a week, every single week that I was there. She would not give me money, but she would put money on my phone so that we could communicate on a daily basis. Like, she was there for me. She cared for
Mm,
me. And if you or someone that is dealing with these kinds of problems, take it from somebody that's been through it. You can't take away the love. You have to keep giving the love, but you
mhm.
do have to take away the money. Like,
Right.
that's just kind of what that looks like. Okay. But at this time, something changed. So we're going to get a little bit brighter here, because you can only sit in that dark and dreary spot for so long before you're ready for some light. Okay. So this is when some good stuff started happening. Okay. So I get out of jail and I go to treatment for the last time. Through this whole thing, it's crazy. I've been through treatment 14 different times. Okay. And so if you know somebody that's been through treatment and they didn't get sober right away, it's okay. Send them again. Like, it's gonna
Right.
be all right. Just keep on sending them, and
Right.
at some point, hopefully something clicks. So I went through treatment again. And, some things started changing. Okay. I had had a fitness certification since I was very young. The military provides funding for, different certificates and things like that. And so, I've been a certified personal trainer for a while. And I had always tried to use fitness as an outlet, just not very consistently. And all of a sudden, I just got into fitness, and I found this thing that it didn't matter. I mean, it does, but for me, I couldn't do it so much that I was harming myself. Does that make sense? Like,
Mhm.
my whole life, I find a substance and I use it until it's broken, right?
Right.
Fitness wasn't like that. For whatever reason, I found this healthy place where I could train, and I was not overtraining, and I was able to find a very healthy outlet. And so I go through and I start utilizing nutrition and start utilizing fitness to start achieving performance-based goals. And it's funny, because don't get me wrong, like, I am still broke. I am still struggling to, like, live. I'm still getting help paying the rent from my mom, because I have no way to pay for rent on my own. I am walking to work as a server at Buffalo Wild Wings, because that's the only job that I'm qualified for where they didn't care about my criminal record and all this
Mm,
stuff.
mhm.
Like, my life is a shambles. I'm in the craziest place that I have, ever really been, and I'm sober, but I'm happy. And
Wow.
I'm happy because I just have something positive to put all my effort towards. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? And so we go through, and all these good things continue to happen. And then all of a sudden, I have people that start reaching out to me asking for help, and they want me to help them with their nutrition, and they want me to help them with their fitness goals and all these things. And I'm like, sure, why not? And then before I know it, I look around and I'm helping like 10, 12 different people for free. And I'm like, well, I'm already spending like 20 hours a week helping these people. Maybe I should start charging them. Maybe they'll
Mhm.
pay me. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like, that'd be kind of cool. It would certainly make me feel more motivated. And it's also going to make them feel more motivated, because if they're
Yes.
financially invested, then it's not just, oh, yeah, I'm asking somebody for advice and I don't really,
Mhm.
but all of a sudden, and so, yeah, of the 12 people, like 8 of them started paying me money. And just like that, all of a sudden, I am like making a career of teaching people how to exercise and helping people reach performance goals. And I start, the client base starts growing. And the fun part, like, it's funny, like, we continue to grow and make more money. I don't manage my money very well, so my wife Darcy does all of that. And so our lifestyle has stayed the exact same, because as soon as she tells me that I can spend more money, trust me, I spend more money. Not, not a good thing. But the thing that has happened is, all of a sudden, there's this extra financial stability to try and better myself. And so we do
Mhm.
things like more certifications, and we like to do outreach, and we like to do all of these things. And it's just created this great opportunity for me to live this amazing life and help others. And so, yeah, that's kind of my story. I hope it didn't go too long.
No, that's thank you
But
so much. Thank
yeah,
you.
no
Like
problem.
your vulnerability and honesty, I appreciate it so much because people don't talk about these things and they're important. And I think the first of all, congrats first so many things I want to say. First of all, thank you for your service. I did not know that you served. So thank you for your service.
Yeah.
Congratulations on getting sober and just like just showing people that no matter how far down the road it looks like there's like no light at the end of the tunnel, like your story proves that there is. You have to hold on. You can't lose hope. Yes, it takes work. And I think that whole it's two parts, right? So like you had to do the work emotionally, right? But
Oh
you
yeah.
had support and it's hard, right? Because when you have somebody, that sometimes you don't know how to support someone where it doesn't need to be financially supported for them, but just being there for them. And even that is can be a little bit exhausting, when someone's
Yep.
struggling with an addiction to continue to show up for them and to say like, okay, so it's your 15th time, getting
Yep.
sober, but like I'm still showing up for you. It's a two-way street, right? It takes a lot. But I think the support that you had was a big, 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 big reason why you were
So
able to
much.
come out of
So
it.
much. Like it's incredible. I will be indebted to, I mean, I was indebted to my mother for birthing me. But I will be indebted to my mother for the rest of my life. I've made it very clear to her that, Mom, when it's time for you to go to a nursing home, you're coming to my house. I'm going to take care of
Mm,
you. I'm going
mhm,
to do these
mhm.
things because how could I not? You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah. Oh man. Okay. Well, I'm so grateful for you. So glad that you were able to work through that. And now other people are living healthier lives because of that. Right. So it's not just, your mom didn't just save your life. She saved all these other people's lives that could have been going down a very similar road. I'm sure you take on a variety of people, but I'm sure people who have history of drug addiction or, some sort of addiction have also probably come to you because they feel like they can trust you and relate to you. And I'm sure that their transition to healthier living only helps them to get further away from those old habits.
Well, absolutely. And Tony, I got to tell you, so two things. First of all, one of the main ways that we like to give back is there's a nonprofit here in Utah called Warrior Strength. Okay. And what it is it's just a gym where we don't charge people. Everything is just kind of donation based on people that are able to donate, right?
Yeah,
And it just is an environment for people in recovery to come and work out and have a community where they can feel supported and loved. And
that's
that's
beautiful.
yeah, and so that's one of those things, I spend nothing too crazy, probably like 2-3 hours a week over there, just trying to be
Nice.
of service as best as I can. But the other thing, what people don't always realize, I think, is that the path to sobriety is actually very, very similar to your path to a healthier lifestyle. So
Hmm.
even if you don't necessarily have an understanding of what drug addiction looks like, I would challenge that thought a little bit.
Right.
Because if you feel like a slave to your food, then there are some things that we practice in places like Alcoholics Anonymous and things like that, where all of a sudden you start realizing, like, oh, this food addiction is very similar to what Danny may have gone through with drugs.
Right.
And there are just some super big keys that kind of come, and I actually I do this every now and again where I compare some sobriety journeys to health journeys, but I'll just talk about a couple things that are extremely important to that journey into sobriety that are also important to that journey into better health. Okay.
Yeah.
So in Alcoholics Anonymous, they talk about getting a better relationship with your higher power. Okay. And the reason they talk about that, not because they preach God or anything like that, right? But it's realizing that your way is not working,
Right.
and understanding that you need to try something that's a little bit different that somebody else has proven. You know what I
Mhm.
mean?
Mhm.
Understanding, like, if I keep trying to force my way into this, I'm just going to continue getting the same results I have been. Okay.
Right.
And
Right.
then they talk about a searching, fearless inventory, moral inventory. Okay. And it's not necessarily like a searching, fearless moral inventory for everybody on a health and fitness journey, right? But you have to be able to honestly look at yourself and realize, I've got this tendency to overeat a little bit. I've got this tendency to not want to move my body a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And you just have to, it doesn't make you a bad person. That doesn't mean that you're a piece of crap for being a couch potato. You're not. You're an amazing human being who likes to sit on the couch. It's just that simple. But
Mm-hmm.
you just have to be willing to look at that and decide what healthy changes you can make for yourself. And if you're consistently defensive and telling yourself like, oh no, I'm fine just the way that I am, and you are fine just the way you are, but if you want to make these healthy lifestyle changes,
Right.
you might have to make an adjustment.
Right. You can't be upset that you don't get the results that you envision and you dream, but you're not putting the work in to get there. You know?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. 100%. So yeah, those are just two things where it's just, those are actually like, again, in addiction, we do those things on a very emotional level. Like, hey,
Mm-hmm.
I don't treat people very well. I need to be better about that. Like
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
serious things that really hit, like, why do people not like me? That's an
Mm-hmm.
actual question that I had to ask myself at some point. So it's not quite that crazy, right? But if you're sitting there and you're unhappy with the way you feel, you're unhappy with your weight, your doctor maybe is telling you that you need to lose weight or something like that,
Mm-hmm.
then it's okay to look at that and not get offended by that.
Right.
It's okay to look at that and have an understanding like, oh, yeah, maybe that's true. And maybe there's something different I can do.
Right. Right. And I think at the end of the day, you need to do it for you. So although a doctor might say something or although someone might point it out to you, I think if it comes from the understanding of that you want to change, not that you need to change, but you want to change, then
Mm.
I think that you'll be able to set up, the path or get the proper guidance to be able to do so.
Yep. Yep. You're
Yeah.
completely right about that. 100%. Same with addiction. It's like, I mean, if anyone has experience with it, they know we don't get sober till it's
We're
time.
ready. Yeah, till you're ready. Absolutely. But a similar, also another parallel is like when you were saying, it took you, it was your 13th time. How many times?
14,
So you're
14 treatment
14.
centers.
So 14 treatment centers. But do you know how many people go from like diet to diet to diet? And it's like, maybe they're just
Yep.
not ready to really embrace a healthy lifestyle. Maybe there's something about the temporary, the excitement, the starting something new, the not really truly committing, like maybe there's something to that, but then eventually when they decide I'm making a lifestyle change, I'm done dieting, I'm done with the restrictive behaviors, I'm done with the cycle, and they make that choice and they make that decision and they get proper guidance. Like it's not an easy road, getting sober I'm sure was not easy for you, even though you finally decided that you were going to do it, but
Sure.
you're going to be more likely to be successful in the long run because you made that choice to change.
100%. And it's funny, like the majority of those times going through treatment, the thought process was get sober for 90 days, get the legal system off my back, get these people to leave me
Mm,
alone so I can go right
mm,
back to my lifestyle. Does that
mm,
sound familiar? Does that sound
mm.
familiar to the,
Mhm,
I'm going to
mhm,
lose 30 pounds for this vacation.
mhm,
I'm going to lose
mhm,
30 pounds to fit into my wedding dress. I'm going to do this for
mhm.
this. And then I'm going to go right back to what I was doing before.
Wow. Oh, wow. I'm
It's funny how that
so
works, huh?
It's interesting. It's very interesting. I know people are loving this podcast. I'm so grateful to have you here. This is such a good conversation.
Hey, I'm glad.
Yeah, seriously. And and this is just like a sidebar, but like speaking with you, if you never told me that, I would have never. You're so kind. You're just the way that you carry yourself. Not that that makes you were not kind, but just like when you say people like didn't like you, like
Right.
in a bazillion years, if you told me that you were addicted to drugs, you went to jail, you had people who turned to like no, never. I'm like, are you kidding? Like this kind soul. But that's the thing, like I can tell like people's energy, like you have just a kind soul, you're a really good person. And it just sounds like you just got lost along the way. And I think we all get lost along the
Yeah.
way, and it's so just so oh God, it's so great that you found your way back.
Yeah. Thanks, Tony.
You're welcome.
It's
You're
but
welcome.
it's on purpose. Like I'll be the first to admit I was not born that way.
Yeah.
But for some people they go through the fire and they come out a little bit worse and bitter.
Mm.
I'm actually so grateful for what I went through because I mean,
Mhm.
like I've lost everything. You know what I mean? And so today I live a life where I'm so grateful for the smallest of things. You know
Yeah,
what I mean? My wife gives
definitely.
me an allowance. I think it's awesome because I remember a time when I was trying to scrape up change to pay for a McDonald's sandwich because I hadn't eaten in 2 or 3 days. You know what I
Wow.
mean?
Yeah.
Like I remember those times. And so I just it can only get so bad. Nobody can really say anything to me that's going to hurt me, not because of my ego, but because honestly, at some point in time, it might have been true. I
Right.
might have been, a terrible person. I might have done some terrible things, but I can truthfully and honestly look at myself and say that I'm at least trying to do a little bit better today than I was yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
And so far, it's worked out pretty well.
That's awesome. So awesome. Okay, let's speak to, since you and I do something very similar where we help people get towards a healthy lifestyle. What would you
Yes.
say is like the most important thing when someone's working towards that? What are some things that they either need to be doing or implementing to help make sure that they're successful in that?
Oh, for sure. Okay. So this is kind of my take, and I've been developing it a little bit with some friends. Brad, like I've been talking to
Yeah.
Brad about this. So there's one major thing that I feel like has to happen, and this is on like a countrywide scale. Obviously, we have a country that struggles with food a little bit, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't make us a bad country. It just makes us a country that has a ton of access to food that doesn't make us feel full, honestly.
But
But
then we also have mixed messages about what you should eat or you shouldn't eat, and like,
sure.
throw diet culture into the mix. Like
Yep.
it's complicated.
Yep.
It's complicated.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so my biggest take on what it takes in order to live a healthy lifestyle is to get yourself to a place where you can mindfully and possibly intuitively, depending on kind of how in tune you are with your intuition, or if mindfulness works better for you, meaning there's
Mm-hmm.
more thought process, whatever works, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think the most important thing that we're lacking in society today is understanding how to mindfully or intuitively eat at maintenance calories. So
Mm.
you are mindfully eating at a place where you are not gaining weight or losing weight.
Mm.
You are not hungry, you are not too full. You are
Mm-hmm.
sitting at maintenance calories. Period. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that there are multiple different methods to get to a place where you can do that. And there's two of them that I like to use, and if it's okay, I'm going to speak on both of them
Sure.
just a little bit, okay?
Yeah, go
Now,
for it.
I always speak on two because there's no such thing as a one size fits all. It's
Mm-hmm.
just something that does not serve anybody. And one of these methods does not work for everybody, but one of them kind of does. But the one is, I believe that for people that can handle it, okay, we have a lot of beautiful, amazing people that get a little bit compulsive and obsessive in this situation. So we have to be cautious, okay?
Mm-hmm.
But I believe in learning to track calories and macros, okay? Not because I want to be able to create this perfect weight loss plan that's the exact calories or macros for optimization. No, I think the important part of this is for bringing in information,
Right.
gaining
Education.
knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. So I didn't know until I tracked and counted that it takes roughly 15 to 1800 calories worth of peanuts for me to feel satisfied, right? Like just and honestly, that's not that much, guys. That's like 2 cups of peanuts. That's not that big of a deal. You
Mm-hmm.
know what I mean? Like you're talking about 3 or 4 handfuls of peanuts. How easy can you do that? But I didn't know that. I just, like, and so that's why I think it's important to understand, because on top of that, if I eat a full chicken breast, I'm done. I don't want to eat any more than that. Like 8 ounces of chicken is a lot of chicken. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so just to have that understanding and knowledge, like, hey, I can eat this and it happens to be this number of calories. And this is how full I feel, compared to, if I start eating this and this is the number of calories to help me feel full. Just that knowledge of understanding what you're eating so that
Mm-hmm.
you can make your decisions based off of things that right?
Yeah.
But again, that's not a method that works for everybody. I'm going to say that, for about 60% of our clients that we work with, that's a great method that they enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
But we also have this category of person that gets a little bit too obsessive with it and a
Mm-hmm.
little bit too impulsive. And they get into this place where it's like, oh, he told me I'm only supposed to eat 1,750 calories, but I ate 1,743. That's not okay. Something's wrong. Oh my, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And it
Yeah.
just gets a
Yeah.
little bit too crazy and a little out of control. And so for these people, we definitely have to take a more habits-based approach. Now, for so many people, I think they get a little confused on what a habits-based approach looks like. A habits-based approach is not necessarily finding something that works and doing the exact same thing every single day. Like that just sounds miserable to me. But for me, the things that I like to concentrate on when we're talking about a habits-based approach is how do we find a well-rounded situation for you that's going to work long-term? How many steps are you taking every day? How difficult would it be for you to increase that step count? How much water are you drinking every day? And how comfortable are you with the idea of, hey, maybe if you go pee a little bit more, that's actually going to be better for your health. Who knows? You know what I mean? And so it doesn't have to be just like these stringent food-based habits that we kind of tend to concentrate on just a little bit too much, in my opinion, but more along the lines of like a lifestyle habit of, hey, if I want to eat a little bit more, maybe I can try this, and this, and find that healthy place where you're comfortable and happy, and hopefully not getting too obsessive. Because if we're doing habits, then that's because we want to find a place where you're not stuck and obsessing over those habits.
Yeah, it's a fine line. You have to figure out, because it really is, that's where it goes down to individualized care, because someone can obsess over, I've had people obsess over like just standing in their bedroom getting their steps in, because like they have 9,877 and they're supposed to get 10,000 and they're going up and down the stairs, and like it's like, okay, like depending on your mindset that might be just fine, but like it comes to the point where it's like, now if you feel like a bad person because you got 9,988 steps and not 10,000, like that's where we have to like really focus on, that's why I think both of those approaches could also work together, having many different ways to measure so you don't become too obsessive over one or the other.
Agreed. Well, and there's that other place too, where, I only hit 9,983 steps or whatever. I better hit 20,000 tomorrow to make up the difference.
Right.
Because that's also, like, it's a terrible mindset and a terrible place, guys. Like, holy cow. It's nuts to me to see some of these extreme measures that we put ourselves through. In fact, I just had a conversation with a beautiful human being that I love dearly. And she's like, I've been stuck at this weight number for this amount of time. And I'm struggling, and I'm in this place where I'm binging once or twice a week because I'm unhappy with my food and yada, 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 yada. And I think the best solution right now is to go on a 10-day super hardcore deficit and really break that plateau. I'm like, that's an interesting thought process. So we're already struggling. We already feel that desire to binge on a consistent basis, and we want to make it more difficult. But that's one of those things where society has done us a little bit of a disservice, Toni, because you know what? We look at people and we look at bodybuilders and athletes and these people that do these crazy, difficult things, and we judge ourselves based on these things. Like, guys, that's a special kind of person, and that's so cool that they can do that, but they get paid for that. Why are you trying to do that to yourself? You know what I mean? Like, if I was making millions of dollars, and I might try and do some of that stuff too, but I'm not. So instead, I'm going to try and live the happy, full life. And, if I'm miserable, I'm going to do some things to make that miserable feeling go away. And then maybe take a look at, weeks or months down the road, even at, okay, maybe now we'll try again and see what it looks like,
Yeah, definitely. All right. So going back to that point about, I love that idea. I think we need to first learn how to eat at maintenance and consistently. So that, I think, will get us back in touch with our hunger cues. I think will just make us more self-aware. It really creates like a really nice foundation for deciding if now you want to bulk up or if you want to work on fat loss or whatever it is. I think it's a really, really great foundational step. So I support that. I agree with you. However, there are people that they fear eating more because they fear that they're going to gain weight.
Sure.
And so what would you say to somebody like that like you have this plan of action for them, but they're like, but what happens if I gain weight?
There's a few different things, and, I'm not a sexist individual. I have strong, incredible women in my life that have shown me exactly who runs this world. So go you. I'm well aware of who's in charge, right? But There's also, this is something that seems to happen more often with our women. Okay. And for so many of them, it's actually not their fault. It's got so much to do with the fact that they have put themselves through these extreme measures to lose weight before, and they feel like that's necessary to do it again. You know what I mean? So there's women that come to us for very, very different reasons, right? Some of them come for weight loss. Some of them want to get that toned, muscular look. You know what I mean? A lot of people, they look at Julie Michaels or whatever, and they see, hey, that's a very fit, strong woman. I want to look like that. Cool. Let's do that. But what you have to understand is, to do that, we have to eat more food. Okay. But there's a few things that I would talk about when it comes to weight gain. Okay. First of all, there's a huge difference between gaining fat and gaining muscle. Okay. Because if you're putting on weight, that can be a number of different things. For all you step on that scale and you see it go up a little bit, that could be water. That could be because you haven't gone poop today. That could be because you need to go pee. That could be because you just ate a big breakfast, whatever. Okay. And so don't let that scale number dictate how you feel about the program you're running. Have an understanding that, hey, the average female can potentially put on somewhere in the vicinity of about 12 pounds of muscle a year. Okay. So if you gain 12 pounds in a year and it's, primarily muscle, that's awesome. The other thing to think about too is that the average pound of muscle burns 10 to 12 calories a day doing nothing. And the average pound of fat burns 1 to 2. So you're actually speeding up your metabolism. So technically, if we're getting super scientific and numbery right now, right? You put on 12 pounds of muscle that's burning an extra 10 calories a day. All of a sudden, your maintenance calorie level, the number of calories you can eat to stay at maintenance, went up by 120 calories. And now you can eat 2,100 calories a day and not gain weight or lose weight. Why would you not want that? Let's eat more food, right? And so
that's a great point.
There's that aspect of it, because then all of a sudden, like, what you don't understand is that these surplus phases, right? You might put on some fat. You might feel a little bit bloated through these weight gaining phases. You might not always love the way you feel, might not always love the way you look. Like, that's just part of the process sometimes, but you're doing yourself a favor over time. And so you are sacrificing the quote unquote bikini bod. But guys, the other thing that's super cool about having a maintenance calorie level of 2,100 calories, right, is all of a sudden, to sit at a calorie deficit, you can actually lose weight now at like 1,900 or 1,800 calories, instead of having to go to that place before where you're at 1,500 or 1,400 or 1,300 calories or something insane that we shouldn't even be talking about. Right. And so to be in that place where you all of a sudden went through this muscle gain phase. And then on top of that, I got to tell you, for women in particular, look, ladies, we are well aware as the male generation that, we live in a time and age where women should be running things. Like, it just is what it is. Thank God for the time that we live in. We have a female vice president. I expect to see tons of positive changes because of that. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm not even, very politically inclined. Just the simple fact that there's a woman in charge, I think, is awesome. But as a man speaking to a woman, I think one of the most empowering things that a woman can do is get physically stronger. This society of, I have a strong man to do the heavy lifting for me, is completely unnecessary. And I think it's silly. I think women are fully capable and should be doing that heavy lifting all on their own. And they should have that feeling and empowerment of understanding that I don't need anybody to do this for me. I'm going to open that damn pickle jar. Period. You know what I mean? Like,
I'm going to lift this box and put it on the shelf,
Yeah. And I just, totally. It's so empowering, and it's going to give you that sense of empowerment for the rest of it. So you put on 10, 12 pounds and you want to take off some fat. It's like, you know what? I stayed in a calorie surplus for 6 months, and look at all this heavy stuff I can lift. If I can do that, I can do anything, period. Like, I promise you, that first time that, you deadlift over 100 pounds, or you back squat something that you didn't think you could back squat or whatever, there's a mindset switch, because if you can do that and you can get through that initial fear, all of a sudden you can do anything.
Yeah.
And so anyways, that was a whole lot of different answers to the same
No,
question.
but that was great. But I think the point to what you're saying, you know, if you start to increase your calories to maintenance, then that means eventually if you do want to work towards fat loss, at least you don't have to now eat 12 to 1300 calories to do that. You can eat closer to like 16, 17, 18, depending on where that brings you. So that helps you in the long run. The other point to that, though, I think is important is that, you know, if you're doing a lot of strength training, then it will, like, the weight that you're gaining is muscle mass. If you're not doing strength training and you're eating more, it might not necessarily be, but you still are fixing your metabolism over time, depending on, you know, what your foods you're eating and the amount and all that. But I really hope, guys, let us know, because from just listening to that, I was like, oh, thank God, because I feel like my clients are tired of me saying it. I'm like, so thank God it's coming from somebody else. So like, I'm like, this just reinforces everything I've taught to them, and like now it's like, okay, I hope people are hearing this and understanding that you have to be thinking of the long term, the end game, and we get so caught up in the short term, but it's doing more damage than good, and you really need to trust the process and look at it as if you're like, you know, 1 to 2 years out, looking back, being like, oh, you know what, that 5 to 6 months where I had to like go back to maintenance, like now we'll get where I'm at. Like that was so worth it. Otherwise you would still be exactly where you are right now, 2 to 3 years from now. And unfortunately, that's where most people do. They spend their entire adult life just staying stuck, you know?
If it's okay, Toni, I'm going to give an example. Are you okay with that?
Yeah, sure.
So I don't think you may have seen her once, but my wife, Darcy, okay. Darcy is 39 years old. She's about to turn, we don't say that word 40 in our home, but
why embrace it? She looks 25.
I know.
In a good way. In a good way.
She looks
Tell
stunning.
her to embrace it. She is a hot mama.
But so Darcy's first time in a weight room, okay, was at the age of 37. That was her first time picking up a barbell. That was her first time doing anything that was not the Stairmaster or cardio. Okay.
I wouldn't know.
Yeah. And so it's funny, like one of these days, every now and again, we don't really like the whole before and after thing, because like, it's just like every now and again, if I have a super, super special story come up with somebody, then maybe I'll post one, but it's not my sales piece. Right. But Darcy started, and she's 5'4". She says she's 5'5", but that's pretty questionable. But
so she's 38 and she's 5'5".
And 5'5" and a half. But she started at about 186 pounds. And then at one point in time, she actually got herself all the way down to 138 on her fitness journey. Okay. Which is super, super small. In fact, for her, that was too small. Now this is the example that I want to talk about. So she was at 138, 139 pounds, and we put her on a surplus, and she stayed on that surplus for 5 months. Okay. Now the reason we put her on that surplus is she had a goal to deadlift over 200 pounds.
Wow.
Yeah. And so that's a goal that she accomplished. Okay. And in that 6 months, she ended up at about 152 pounds. Okay. Now, where she's at now, she's probably in the happiest, healthiest place of her life. She sits in the 146, 147 range, right? But she eats 1,900 calories a day and consistently is losing anywhere between, not a ton, but a quarter to 3/4 of a pound every week, eating 1,900 calories a day. And so, just because of the fact that she put on some extra muscle mass, she was able to do some cool things. She was able to speed up her metabolism. She's trying to lean out a little bit, but I don't think she's that concerned with it, because I think she feels great. But just to be in a place where she can eat that much food and be able to just be happy and live her life the way she wants, like that's what a happy life looks like. A happy life is not somebody who's, under eating, like, fairly consistently. A happy person is somebody that is eating enough food to make them feel happy and feel good, and, still be able to make progress towards their goals.
So true. So true. Thank you for sharing that. All right. Well, this has been a great conversation. I wish I could keep you all day, but I need to be mindful of both of our times. I think I have an appointment and I think you have to go as well. So let's quickly just wrap up. Is there any last minute things that you want to share with the listeners, maybe like comments or anything before we share how people can get in touch with you?
Biggest thing is just don't quit. Don't
Yeah.
worry about what happened this week. Don't worry about,
Mhm.
your results for the last 2 months. I think the biggest, most important thing that I can tell anybody is just keep on going,
Yeah.
because at some point in time, the magic's going to start happening.
Yeah, I love that. I love that so much. All right, Danny, where can people find you if they want to work with you, ask you questions, let you know how amazing this was, maybe reach out for questions about sobriety if they or somebody they love are struggling?
For sure, for sure. So on Instagram, our Instagram handle is the letter D, the letter N is in November, the letter D, fitness and nutrition. So at DND Fitness and Nutrition, we post a lot of content. And we actually definitely take the time to make sure that we respond to any messages that are sent to us. Because truthfully, like, because of what I have been through, I don't have any right to expect money. Like, I've been very blessed with being financially stable.
Hmm.
And so my overall goal is just to help people. And
Hmm.
so, if you want to ask some questions and you're not in a financial place to pay me, that's okay. Just ask some questions. I'm super,
Hmm.
super happy to help anybody that I can. And then we have a Facebook group called Getting Stronger Together. And we post pretty similar content on there to the Instagram page. And then we also have a podcast, the D&D Fitness and Nutrition podcast. So if you've caught up to all of Toni's episodes and then you want to take a look at something that, also has a very body positive and very happy vibe, not a shameful or, oh, you have to stop eating vibe,
Hmm.
then, it's a good place to go. It's a good place to check out.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. Thank you so much for being here. This was awesome. Guys, if you liked anything that you heard, definitely take a screenshot of this episode, share it on your story, and tag me at tips_with_Toni with an I and D&D Fitness and Nutrition. Definitely reach out to Danny if you have any questions. If you did not already subscribe to the Tips with Toni podcast, definitely hit that subscribe button so you can get notified when a new episode comes out every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 3 episodes a week now. Super pumped about that. And if you feel so inclined to write a review, I would really, really appreciate it. All right, guys, that is it for us today. Have a very nice day. As always, I'm Toni Marinucci, your registered dietitian, helping you get healthy one bite at a time.